Victor Hale's private jet touched down through a curtain of midnight rain, the landing gear screeching against the tarmac like a warning he refused to hear. He stepped out before the stairs even settled, impatience carved into every angle of his jaw. He didn't bother with luggage, the only thing that mattered was getting home. The car ride should have been comforting. Black leather seats, soft classical music, but instead every piano note felt like a countdown. He replayed the unsettling voicemail over and over in his mind. Alina's trembling voice, cut short by a crash and then silence. He'd tried calling back, nothing. The security system, offline. His children's phones, unanswered. For a man who controlled half the city's wealth, he suddenly felt powerless. The mansion appeared like a dark monument against the storm, each window blacked out. Even from the drive, Victor knew something was wrong. Elena always kept at least one light on, for safety or maybe just comfort, but tonight the house swallowed the night instead of pushing it away. Stay with the car, he ordered his driver, though the man looked relieved not to be asked to follow. Victor pushed through the front door, disarmed by how quiet everything was. Normally, laughter and footsteps echoed in the grand entryway. Tonight, the silence pressed against his eardrums, thick and suffocating. Elena. His voice sounded too loud. No answer. He flicked the lights on. Nothing. Power cut. He pulled his phone out, using the flashlight to slice through the darkness. Every portrait and polished surface glared back at him with warped reflections. He moved cautiously, steps muffled by the expensive rugs. He headed toward the living room and froze. Elena sat on the floor, back rigid against the marble wall. Her wrists were bound behind her, duct tape stretched across her mouth. Her eyes were wide and wet, and when she saw him, she shook her head violently, warning him. A choked breath escaped Victor. No. A small gasp came from behind the couch. He stepped forward, heart slamming against his ribs. There, tucked beside Elena, were his children, Lucas and Mari. Their tiny bodies were pressed together, arms tied, faces streaked with tears. Victor fell to his knees, his hand trembling as he reached toward them. "It's okay," he whispered, half to them, half to himself. "I'm here now, it's okay." Mari shook her head the same way Elena had. Lucas stared past Victor, eyes fixed on something in the shadows behind him. Victor turned slowly. A man stood near the far corner, blending into the darkness like he was carved from it. A black mask covered his face, but Victor could feel the intruder smiling beneath it, a smile that knew too much. "Welcome home, Mr. Hale." Victor's heart rate skyrocketed as adrenaline surged. "If you hurt them, I already have," the intruder interrupted, voice calm, almost amused. But only a little, just enough fear to soften the ground. He lifted a small remote, wagging it tauntingly. "You built this fortress to keep danger out. Instead, you handed me control. Cameras, locks, panic rooms, it's all mine tonight." Victor's mind raced. Security guards, panic alarms. There had to be a fail-safe. "You're after money," he said quickly, grasping for logic. "Tell me what you want." "I can. What I want," the intruder cut in, taking a slow step closer, "isn't something you can buy, Victor." The way he said his name made Victor's skin crawl. Someone who knew him, deeply. The children whimpered. Elena squeezed her eyes shut. Victor straightened, trying to muster every ounce of command he possessed in boardrooms and corporate wars. "You'll leave them out of this. Whatever your issue is, it's with me." "Oh," the intruder replied, tilting his head. "You have no idea who your issue is with." The remote clicked. The lights flickered. A distorted face appeared on every screen in the house. Security cameras hijacked, looping images from every angle. "Time to tell the truth, Victor Hale," the intruder said softly. "Let's start with the lies you built this life on." The storm rumbled outside as if the sky itself had joined the intruder's threat. Victor realized, with a terrible sinking certainty, that the nightmare had only begun. Victor forced himself to stand, though his knees threatened to betray him. The intruder kept the remote visible, one thumb resting casually over a red button that pulsed faintly in the dim. It felt like a warning heartbeat. "What do you want from me?" Victor said, his voice low, deliberate. "Let my children go. Let Elena go. You and I can settle this." The intruder chuckled, a soft sound that felt sharper than a slap. You always assume you're the center of the room, the story, the world. Tonight, try being a witness. He stepped closer, just enough for Victor to see the glint of his eyes behind the mask, rage tempered by absolute purpose. Victor positioned himself between the masked man and the three bound figures on the floor. His hands curled into fists. He had never been a fighter. He paid other people to do that, but the primal instinct to protect his children surged, overwhelming everything else. The intruder's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. Sit down. Victor didn't move. Click. Hidden speakers crackled to life around the room, the sound system breathing like it had awoken. A familiar voice echoed through the mansion, Victor's own, sharp and cold, recorded without his knowing. I'm not risking my assets for their family. Cut them out. They'll survive or they won't. It's not my concern. The blood drained from Victor's face. He recognized the recording. A call from years ago, one of many where he had dismissed the consequences of his business empire. Elena flinched as if struck. Lucas and Mari looked up at their father, confusion and fear twisting together. The intruder spread his arms. We could spend all night listening to your greatest hits. But I'd rather you explain. Tell them what you meant. Victor swallowed. I said horrible things. Work talk, stress. Those conversations don't mean. Don't insult them, the man snapped. Not again. He tapped another button. The screens shifted, now displaying a photo. A factory, collapsed, smoke curling into the sky. Beneath it, a headline Victor remembered burying, 8 workers trapped. Company denies fault. Victor's voice spilled from the speakers again. The story dies if the money's right. Mari whimpered, shrinking against her brother's shoulder. Victor felt like he was watching his life rot in real time. I didn't know people would be hurt, he said, but even he heard the lie in his tone. The intruder circled him slowly, like a predator testing weakness. You knew exactly what would happen. Because numbers were easier to face than names. His steps stopped behind Victor. A cold piece of metal pressed against the billionaire's back, the barrel of a gun. Victor stiffened. I want you to think very carefully before you lie again, the intruder murmured. Elena struggled fiercely against her bindings, trying to shout through the tape, eyes blazing. She wasn't afraid anymore, she was furious. The intruder came back into view, keeping the gun trained on Victor. There's something you're going to tell them tonight. Something you've never admitted, because until you do, you're not getting your perfect little life back. Victor's breath hitched. Tell them what? The masked man crouched in front of the children, speaking softly, almost gently. Do you know what your father did to mine? Victor's stomach dropped so fast he nearly collapsed. The intruder stood and turned toward a wall panel. He pressed a sequence only someone who knew the system could know. A hidden door slid open with a hiss, revealing a small, dark chamber beyond. Blue emergency lights flickered inside, illuminating shelves of files, drives, and binders labeled with dates and codenames. Victor's private archive, his sins, documented, categorized, locked away. Everything he destroyed to build this palace, the intruder said. Every life reduced to paperwork. He grabbed a folder, flipped it open, and tossed it at Victor's feet. Polaroids scattered, injured workers, ruined buildings, and one final image. A man in a hospital bed, gaunt and unrecognizable, eyes closed forever. The intruder's voice cracked beneath the steel. My father. You killed him. Not with your hands. Cowards like you never touched the blade, but with every choice you buried under profit. Victor's lips parted. No sound came out. Mari started to cry. Lucas whispered, Dad, is that true? Victor turned slowly toward his children, and there, for the first time, he didn't see admiration in their eyes. Only fear. The intruder lifted the gun higher, leveling it at Victor's chest. Now you understand, he said. Tonight isn't a robbery. He leaned in close, voice low and final. It's a reckoning. Victor's pulse hammered against the gun's barrel, each beat a frantic reminder that everything he'd built was crumbling in front of the only people who mattered. He tried to step toward his children, but the intruder lifted his weapon a fraction higher, the silent order unmistakable. Back, the man warned. This is your trial, Victor. Not a family reunion. The billionaire forced his hands open, showing he wasn't a threat. Let's talk. I can make this right. A brief, icy silence followed. Then the intruder let out a low, Hollow laugh. Make it right. With what? More money. Another payoff. A new lie to replace the old ones. Victor flinched. The truth burned more than the gun. The intruder turned to Elena, kneeling just long enough to peel the tape from her mouth. She gasped, the sudden freedom painful. You're okay, Victor breathed. Elena's eyes snapped to him, blazing with anger sharper than any blade. No, she spat, we're not. She looked at the intruder, and nodded, slow and grim. Victor's heart twisted. That tiny nod felt like betrayal, but deep down he knew, this wasn't a coup. It was justice she'd waited for. The intruder straightened and motioned to the open archive chamber. You've spent years burying your crimes in there. Let's dig one up. Something special. He grabbed another binder, thick and dark red. A name was stamped across the cover, the Nolus Project. Victor stiffened. Not that, he snapped. The intruder's satisfaction was almost tangible. Ah, so we hit a nerve. He flipped the binder open as though revealing a treasure chest. Photos of families living in a rundown community stared out at Victor, smiles faded and hopeless. Blueprints of redevelopment plans, government signatures forged, and a death certificate. Victor's voice shook. That wasn't my decision alone. The board you bullied, the intruder interrupted. The residents you evicted, the lives you crushed, just to build a shopping plaza no one needed. He held up a photo of a little girl clutching a stuffed rabbit, standing in front of a condemned home. She died, Victor. Carbon monoxide. Faulty heater in the temporary housing you promised was safe. Victor staggered backward as though struck. His throat closed. He had known. He had seen the report. And he had chosen to forget. Lucas stared at him, horror blooming in his young eyes. You hurt kids, he whispered. The most painful truth. Victor couldn't say no. His knees buckled and he crumpled to the floor, hands sinking into the photos scattered around him like pieces of his own rot. The intruder crouched, gun resting casually on his knee now. Look at them, he ordered. Say their names. Victor stared at the faces, his vision blurring. I don't remember. The intruder exploded, grabbing Victor by the collar and slamming him against the wall so hard the portraits rattled. Of course you don't remember. That's how you live with yourself. Elena cried out. Stop, please. Not for Victor's sake, but for the children who were shaking uncontrollably. The intruder paused, chest heaving. Slowly, he released Victor, allowing him to slide to the floor, broken. He spoke again, voice quiet but lethal. Your children deserve to know the truth. All of it. Victor nodded faintly, not out of courage, but defeat. He turned toward Lucas and Mari, two small figures who looked at him like he was a stranger wearing their father's face. I was selfish, he rasped. I thought if I gave you everything, it would make me good. I never looked at who I was taking from. Lucas's eyes shimmered with tears. Mari hid her face against Elena's side, unable to look. The intruder stepped back, watching Victor crumble beneath the weight of his own confession. He wasn't smiling now. This wasn't victory. It was grief finally given space to breathe. We're not done, he said quietly, returning his gun to Victor's line of sight. There's one final truth you're going to share tonight. The one you've spent years burying deeper than all the rest. The storm outside roared louder, thunder shaking the windows like the world itself was demanding revelation. Victor looked up, drained. What truth? The intruder tilted his head, eyes narrowing behind the mask. The truth about your wife's death. Victor froze, and true terror finally entered his eyes. Victor's lungs forgot how to work. The words hung in the air like a blade suspended by a single thread. The intruder didn't need to explain. The mere mention of his wife was enough to tear open a wound Victor spent years pretending had healed. You, Victor swallowed hard. You don't know anything about her. Oh, but I do, the intruder replied, stepping closer until the gun kissed Victor's forehead. In fact, I know what really happened the night she died. Mari peeked through trembling fingers. Lucas pulled her close, protective despite his own terror. Elena shifted, trying subtly to put herself between them and the threat, but the ropes held tight. Victor's voice came out as a rasp. It was a car accident. The intruder let his silence answer for him. Victor's denial cracked. The reports confirmed it. You bought the reports, the intruder shot back. You rewrote the story, but you can't rewrite memory, Victor. And you remember everything. A faint buzz filled the room, speakers powering up again. Victor's heart plummeted. No, he whispered. Don't do. The intruder pressed the remote. A recording played. Labored breathing, a woman's voice shaking with panic. Victor. Please, slow down. Victor's eyes widened in horror. He knew that voice. He heard it in dreams and nightmares alike. His wife, Amelia. The audio continued. Victor shouting, frantic, angry. I can't lose this deal. Do you have any idea what's at stake? A screech of tires. A scream. Then the sickening crunch of metal. The recording cut off. Lucas and Mari stared, frozen between disbelief and dread. Victor's face collapsed. Stop, please. They don't need to hear this. He looked directly at the intruder, pleading. They're children. They're your children, the masked man replied. They deserve the truth you robbed from them. Victor's breath shook with every inhale. He tried to speak, but shame clamped his throat shut. Alina's voice, soft but fierce, filled the silence. She asked you to slow down, and you didn't. Victor nodded, tears breaking free. I was consumed. By business. By winning. She begged me to stop working, to spend time with the family. That night we fought. I drove too fast. His voice broke. I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did, the intruder said. And you blamed faulty brakes instead of your pride. The weight of those words pinned Victor to the floor. Lucas's voice cracked like thin ice. You killed Mom. The question shattered something inside the billionaire. It was an accident, he whispered. A terrible accident. He looked at his son, begging for understanding. I lost her too, Lucas. I lost her and I didn't know how to be anything but powerful. So I built walls. I buried the truth under success. But every day, it's there. Every day I destroy myself a little more. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. The intruder lowered the gun, but only slightly. Guilt is easy, he said. But justice, that's harder. Tonight, you have to face both. Victor bowed his head, tears soaking the marble tile beneath him. He had no more excuses. No more armor. Just a truth too heavy for one man to carry. The intruder looked toward the children. Now you know. Every pain in your life began with his choices. Lucas stood, shaky but determined, placing himself in front of his sister like a shield. He glared at his father as if seeing him clearly for the first time. You don't deserve us. Victor sobbed silently. The intruder's voice softened, almost mournful. We're not finished. Not until the world sees what you are. He clicked the remote again, but instead of more recordings, a countdown flashed on every screen. Red numbers ticking away. 0 hours 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Victor stared through blurry eyes. What is that? The time you have left, the intruder said, to decide whether this ends with redemption. His finger tapped the gun's trigger. Or ruin. The storm thundered once more, rattling every bone in Victor's body. Time was running out.